All right, cool. So welcome to the top lane lecture, patch 5.5. I'm Nathan. A little bit about myself. President of QUT LOL. Plat 4 now. I think 0 points. I'm a plat scrub. And I've been playing for like 2 years, and I main top. So, with that out of the way, let's start this lecture. So this is what we'll be going through throughout the lecture. If you see my face, it'll likely be next to a tip. So if you want to write notes down, probably those are the ones that you should record. So what we'll be focusing on is on solo queue. So we're not going to focus on team ranked or like pro players, stuff like that. The aim of this lecture is to give you guys helpful tips and tricks so that you can straight up bring into solo queue, and hopefully it will help you out, specifically to top lane. We're going to go through the motions of solo queue, where you go into champ select, pick your runes, masteries, all this type of stuff, level 1, mid game, late game, and so on. So, the solo queue mindset. Let's start off with that before you head into a game. So this quote by Phreak is actually pretty good. Solo queue should only be about practice, self-improvement, and you shouldn't really focus on anyone because hate is gonna hate, So what is the definition of a good top laner? Pretty much not be useless. Make sure you have an impact on the game. Pressure your lane. Make sure that you draw as much jungler attention up top if you can. Snowballing other lanes through TP. Trade your way to victory, wave control. Be useful in team fights. And above all, don't die. Top tip, dying is not good. So we'll be covering everything throughout the lecture. So if you have any questions, does anyone have any questions? If you have any questions, just bring them up. I'll be stopping quite a lot, so you guys can ask them. So the typical mindset in solo queue is self-improvement, as I've said. So what I suggest you guys to do is there's an option in League where you can take off summoning names, and what that does is it doesn't let you focus on that actual summoner. So imagine you were in a game and then you versed like a crappy Fiora, and she's in your next game and she's also Fiora. Then you're gonna say, oh, this crappy Fiora coming into my game, I'm gonna dumpster her, and then she does really good. So in that instance, you're gonna go on tilt. You're gonna be like, oh shit, I underestimated her, and I shouldn't have. Taking off the summoner names, you play towards the matchup. So you're only focusing on the champions, which I think is really good. It's helped me quite a lot. I don't know, someone like Leon, I think, you took it off, but it didn't work for you. But yeah, he got worse. But whatever works for you, really. Just like basic tips, if you're playing League, like if you're playing one game, set aside like 1 hour, 30 minutes, because you're gonna take into account the matchmaking, lobby, and all that sort of stuff. Because everyone says, oh, a game takes like 45 minutes. But then if you really have only 1 hour, you're only setting aside 15 minutes to do champion select. If someone declines, it takes a while. And then if you're, ideally you should go for 3 games in a row. And then you should set aside like around 4 hours. Play at 100% if you can, because stuff like not feeling hungry, going to the bathroom, all that sort of stuff, it adds up. Make sure you're not tired. That's especially really important. And it's all about self-improvement. Here's a quote by Darius. Don't die. So, the banning phase. So these are the suggested champions that you should ban during the lobby, if you're banning. Or you can suggest the person at the top to ban these champions. So the ones at the top are the most common bans in Platinum. But you can ban whatever you want, really. Except these are the ones who have sort of the highest win rate and the highest chance to snowball or be really hard to play against. The ones at the bottom are the flavor of the month. So these are the people that are popular right now. Hecarim top against if he has a favorable matchup against someone at top, he will pretty much win the game. Also, Fizz jungle is really OP. Nidalee is just OP in general, and of course, Aurelia. Top tip. Write down your bans and keep them next to you, because some people, they just panic and ban like Poppy or some shit. So Top lane meta. Oh, I shouldn't swear. All right, so we're gonna play a little game. We're gonna do this for this slide. So suggest other AP top laners that you guys are currently good in the meta. Kennen? Yeah, Kennen's a really good one. You can build their AD too, but probably not. Maokai? That's gonna be covered later. Anyone else? Malphite? Yeah. Usually build him tank, so he's not that much of an AP. Vladimir, yes. Anyone else? Gragas. Oh, Gragas. I think they buffed him, didn't they?
I think a couple of batches, yeah, they buffed him.
Yeah, I think they buffed him a little bit. Oh, no, actually, the new AP item. Yeah. He's back to one-shot Gragas. But anyway, what do you think? Can anyone give me good situations where you would pick these champions? Obviously, if your team needs an AP. Yeah? Yeah. Oh, well, just assume that your fifth pick, and then you pick this champ just to complete your team.
Yeah,
so.
Like a lot of people play AD mid now, so like.
Yeah.
Mid, AD,
Yeah.
So top mid AP. So yeah.
Yeah. These champs are especially good at team fighting as well. That's another thing. I'll bring up the pros and cons. If you're wanting to learn a AP top laner, I suggest go for Lissandra, because Rumble is a bit harder in that you have to manage his heat resource, which is pretty hard, and then it's also hard to CS with him as well. Whereas with Lissandra, she has really good wave clear. She'll just like spam her Qs, clear the wave. CSing is not that hard with her as well, because she has a really good attack animation as well. And Lissandra's especially good if the enemy has an assassin like Zed, because if he jumps in on your AD, you just stun him. You just like ult him straight up. He can't do anything. Whereas Rumble is a little bit hard because he has to walk into the team fight, and he's melee as well, and laning is hard in that aspect as well. And yeah, so top tip, pick these champions if you're AD or if your mid or your jungle are both AD, so that's when you would probably pick them. Support doesn't really matter because they don't contribute too much in terms of like AP or AD damage, unless, you know, it's Annie, which Spencer would understand. Okay, so these are your ultra tanky top laners that you should pick. In terms of, I'm picking these champions in terms of like, it's really easy to play them, and they're really easy to master, basically. They're really tanky. Maokai is especially good for anti-AoE. So if they have someone like, I don't know, Annie and Orianna, that type of wombo combo-y team comp against you, Maokai is a really good pick because of his ult. I think it reduces AoE by like 50% or something like that on your teammates. The cons of both these champions are that they don't have an escape. So be sure that you're not going past the halfway mark. We'll cover that as well during the lecture. Maokai especially, he has really high sustain. So if you want to learn him, it's pretty easy. He has good wave clear as well. He's all around, he's the safest ultra tanky top laner you can pick. But then Zion, his damage is pretty high in that his base damage is just ridiculous. Like this, even if he goes full tank, he does heaps of damage, and he has like the longest range ultimate that can engage. But that said, you know, he also has no escape. Hey? Oh well, you can use his ulti. Well, pre 6, I should say. And then these are your AD bruisers for your top lane. Nor is a little bit harder to play than Aurelia. Aurelia, something to say? Whoa, you can do that. But other than that, she doesn't have. Well, you need a creep. Yeah, but you need a creep behind you. Yeah, what if the jungler waits for you to use it?
It's still classified as escape. It's like, what if you have Katarina and they wait for you to use Chandra? She still has escape. It's just you fail to use it right.
Yeah, but then what if you're pushed up? Actually, no, that's a valid point. So she sort of does have an escape, and then Nara as well. He has his hop. It's pretty hard to gank Nara. Yes, Brad, do you have something to say? Do you want to take the lecture? Oh, yeah, that's right. But anyway, Aurelia's pretty strong, and Nar is pretty strong as well. Aurelia's easy to play because she has her Q. She's really easy to CS with. She has a 2-second stun, which is pretty OP. But Nar he's better at team fights, and he can like complete the wombo combo team comp. Oh, you guys. All right, so let's go into the rune page. Now, I'm not going to explain everything, but basically, these are the 4 that you'd want. I'm going to put this lecture up, and I'm going to give you the link. So basically, there's a cheat sheet, and this is done by Phreak. He did all of these. He even like included how much they cost, all this type of good stuff. So you guys can look at that later, how much to get. I'm not going to go through it because it's pretty boring, to be honest. But a top tip would be to buy the 7 rune page bundle because you're going to need all of it if you haven't already. And some players get the it's like 1% crit chance on the mark, because the reasoning is you're sacrificing 1 AD mark for 1% crit, and if you crit someone, that's double your AD, so it's more than worth. If you're lucky enough to land a crit on someone in lane, that's equivalent to another spell, which is pretty huge when you're trading against somebody. So just keep in mind, you can do that. I do it. You never know, maybe like the crit chance base gods might favor upon you. So the top lane, masteries, cheat sheet. There's only 2 that I included. These are your typical tank masteries, 9, 21, 0. All that you're changing is everything in the yellow boxes. So if you're attack speed reliant, you change that. You put points into that box. If you're spell reliant, like Riven or someone like that, Maokai, whatever, then you put points into that. And if you're an AD champ, you put points in that, AP in that. And then you change your resistances according to your lane or their specific team. Easy enough. A general tip is just to like keep your points towards mostly the left side, because the right side is just, you don't really put that many points in. They're more for special like situations. And then same thing for offensive mastery. So 21, 9, same thing, except you put more points down the tree, and then the defense, that stays the same. I think the reason why they pick regen, the green one, instead of the one next to it, is because I think regen got buffed, so early game is more useful. Not too sure, don't quote me on that. But a lot of top laners do that.
The one next to a percent armor or whatever, so by the end of the game, if you have 2 points in it, it's like +10, +10, but at the start of the game, it does nothing.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll include it. Summoners. This is a quick guide. Everything else, no. Exhaust is because in certain matchups you can take it. I think Yasuo top, if you take exhaust, you pretty much can win any 1v1. Everything else, no. No smite. I didn't include smite here because you shouldn't take smite anyway. But teleport is OP in top lane. Flash should be taking 99%, 99% of the time because it's a really flexible spell. You can use it to escape or engage, hop over walls, all sorts of utility. Ignite should only be taken if you can kill the enemy top laner before level 6. The reason being, if you fall behind when you take Ignite, or unless, you know, it's a top laner like Mundo, or Vlad, then in that case you should take Ignite. But generally, taking Ignite sort of signals to the enemy top laner that you're trying to all-in them and kill them before level 6. If they don't let that happen, you are pretty screwed because they have TP and they can help the other laners, whereas you probably hold on to the Ignite until you use it in a team fight, which doesn't have that as much of an impact on the game. And Ghost should be taking on certain champions like Hecarim or maybe Tryndamere. Tryndamere, because he has a spin, he can use that as sort of like a getaway. It's on a really short cooldown as well, or like Singed or Nasus, or someone who really needs that movement speed over a long period of time. Everything else, no. Okay, early game. So this is what we'll be going through in the early game. Starting items, level 1, trinket, warding areas, all that type of basic stuff. Safe laning tips, there's 3 of them. The level 2 rush strategy, harassing trading, creep wave control. So there's going to be, unlike last time because we only had words and we just explained stuff, this time we have videos and then I'll get some suggestions from the audience as well, and then I'll also have a summary up there for what we learned. So starting items. These are your 4 main starting item sets. Pretty self-explanatory against AD, cloth 5, sustain, flask, door and start. You can't get all 3, obviously, but choose one. And then a longsword start for, say, someone like Fiora or Riven. A top tip is that if you wait a little longer in the base, you can grab an extra HP pot or mana pot. HP pot is more important because then that allows you to stay in lane longer. You can't really stay in lane longer if you have more mana rather than health. If you're waiting, wait right at the edge of the circle because they changed the shop area where you can buy to just like the platform. So if you're waiting, wait at the point, like at the edge, not like inside here, because then you're just wasting time. And then I think if they push, if the top laner pushes, you'll miss like 1 or 2 creeps. No, actually. Yeah. You get to lane soon. You get to lane faster. Okay, level 1, trinket warding areas. So your trinket will come up, and if you place it before 1 minute, it'll come back up at 3 minutes. It's free, you know, and there's a chance that you might spot where the jungler is starting or where the top laner is doing. Just place it down before 1 minute, and it should come back up before 3 minutes so that you can use that again to put it at the tri-bush or wherever you want to ward to protect against the jungler coming up. So if you're on red side, ward where all the red dots are. If you're on blue side, ward where all the blue dots are. So generally, once you go back for your first buy, you buy green ward, and then if you're on blue side, it's a little bit easier for you because then if you just place one here, you'll more than likely see them coming. Unless if they come through the river, you have a chance to spot them. Oh, and also with red side, you place the ward all the way there because they have to actually go into the bush, because then they'll have to go into the bush to actually clear it, and then that gives you more time to like CC them, and they have to like run out long. You know what I mean? So yeah. For red side is a bit harder, because they can come through either here or here. So you have to ward those 2 places, or if you just ward the lone bush and your tri-bush, that's enough. Or you can, maybe if your mid laner is nice or your jungler, they can ward the lone bush. That'd be nice. Leon. Safe laning tip number 1. So this is taken from Facebook. This is pretty funny, but at the same time it's true. I think that's an Akali. I thought that was a Jinx. And that's like a Heimerdinger pushing up. So generally you want to stay in the middle. If you pushed up like where Heimer is, that's pretty unsafe. If you only have a ward there, although you have that ward, because you have this whole space to travel before you're back at your tower at a safe place. So, and also Vi has like 2 forms of CC if she lands her Q. So you're pretty much dead there, unless the Heimer is extremely fed. I've had that game once where try to gank a Heimer, double kill. Sad face. But yeah. So generally stay on your half of the lane. Also in the early game, minion damage is actually pretty high. They can actually, if you take enough creep aggro, you can actually lose lane. So a quick tip is just like duck into the bush to like drop aggro, because minions can't, they don't have sight in there, so they just drop it. Actually, safe laning tip number 2. Upgrade your warding trinket as soon as you can, but you can only grab it at level 9. So I suggest it's like your second or your third back where you should be upgrading your warding totem. So for 250 gold, you get 2 rechargeable wards throughout the whole game. So if you buy more than 4 wards, so if you put down more than 4 wards, you already make your money back. 4 wards? Is that right? 5? 6?
No, four is 300 gold.
Yeah, so you make more than your money back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just meant like those.
Oh yeah, but like you can't buy half a ward.
I didn't play the game.
Okay. And then you can switch over to your sweeper if either the enemy has 2 side stones or 2 warding totems upgraded, so that you can clear more, or if you want more control over objectives such as Baron or Dragon. Top tip, the upgraded warding totem is really good for champions that you play top lane that can jump to a ward, like Jax or Lee Sin even. I think those are the only 2 I can think of. Maybe Katarina if you really want to. And it's also really good for split pushing. Because you gotta ward your flank and you gotta know where your enemy team is before you can safely split push. Alright, so these are just a couple tips that I wanted to put in, but I had nowhere to put it in the slide, so I just like lumped them all here. So Trinket Ward Tribush at 3.5 minutes. Because the jungle is a little bit hard, they're likely to not come up at 3 minutes straight up. I don't know if that's right. Yep. So around 3.5 is where you should put it down. If the enemy laner is behind and then they try to fight you, it's probably a bait, because realistically they will die. So there has to be something sneaky going on. So just don't take that bait. It's probably a jungler waiting in the bush, waiting for you to blow something, and then he'd come out and kill you. If they push the tower with a massive minion wave, and then they try to attack it, let's say there's like a huge wave of range minions, like say 10 or 15, and then they start to attack the turret. So what most people do is that, hey, get off my turret. So you try to, apply more damage onto them, like maybe 1 or 2 auto attacks. But then what that does is all those range minions will switch their aggro to you. So suddenly that 1 auto attack that you put onto the enemy laner who's attacking your tower is not worth it, because all the damage that the minions will do to you is way more than what you're gonna do to the enemy laner. Just focus on CS, try to clear the minions as fast as you can, and then just don't miss any, and then that will turn into so then you won't get harassed at a lane by minions, which is pretty bad. In a 2v1 situation, if this happens to you, it doesn't really happen. It never really happens really in solo queue. But if you're in that situation, prioritize XP over gold. If you're gonna get harassed, like maybe a fifth of your life for 1 CS, is not really worth it. Just wait for the wave to hit your tower and then just try to CS. If they have CC and they're looking to attack your tower, it's probably because the jungler is there or they're gonna dive you. So just abandon it. It's not worth giving up a kill. And also ward your tribush, whether you're in blue side or red side, just to make sure that you're not gonna get dived by the jungler as well. All right, video time. All right. So you can see that there's a lot of advantages to getting level 2 first. So just to summarize, reaching level 2 first means that you gain a killing window where you can basically make your opponent either back away, either they back away or they don't see that you're going to turn level 2, and then you go straight onto them. So you have higher HP, more damage, basically your stats are higher than them, and you'll gain access to your second ability, which is pretty huge in like a 1v1 situation. The tips, if you're wanting to do the level 2 strategy, it has to be sort of like premeditated murder in the sense that you have to be actively thinking about, is this matchup suitable for me to do this strategy? And if so, how can I pull it off? So you'll be looking to take offensive summoners and Darn items to give yourself the best possible chance of pulling this strategy off. Most top laners are not expecting it because they're bad. But That said, these are all the advantages. If you, like I said, if you take Ignite and you go Doran Blade item and you don't kill them, and then they have maybe Cloth 5 or something, they're going to unsustain you, and then you're going to get pushed out of lane. So just keep that in mind. Another tip is that be sure you save your spell, your first spell, before you get the level up, so that you can use it straight away. Because sometimes what happens is that, oh, he's coming in, I harass, oh shit, I just got level 2, but that's on cooldown now. So I have to wait a little bit more, and then by that time he'll just back away. So just make sure you have your first spell up before that little minion dies, and then you can go all in. So just to recap, you'll hit level 2 when the first melee minion of the second wave dies. And then this, yeah, it's pretty basic stuff, but when you're in the heat of the moment in top lane, it's pretty easy to forget. And it's sort of, you have to build through experience, and you have to know when to go in, basically. Keep track of your opponent's cooldowns. From doing a little bit of research, most gap closes are normally around like 10 seconds-ish. Don't quote me on that, but that's around the time that most gap closes come back up again. So with that, here are some like other trading tips that I decided to put in. So, and these are like common problems that I think people face. So say if you're a ranged, if you're a ranged person versus a melee, it's an easier matchup for you. That's not a problem. But a thing you could do is like you could harass them and get CS at the same time. So say you're Lissandra, and there's like a minion that's like low health, and then you can use your Q to kill that minion. You should position yourself so that in killing that minion with your Q, you have a chance of also harassing your enemy laner. It's just more efficient, and you're doing two things at the same time. And also, if they're a melee champion, when they go for CS, in that short period of time, basically they're stunned because they have to auto-attack that minion. So it's a good time for you to either auto-attack or lay some spells onto them. It's just free damage, pretty much. Now, the real problem is melee versus range. Now, some people have really hard times with this. So if you're a melee champion against a range champion, bushes are your friend because they can't auto-attack you what they can't see. So if you're inside the bush, they can't auto-attack you, so that's one of the problems done. But depending on your skill matchup, they can still poke you with spells. And then that could be either done like staying behind minions and such. But being inside a bush means that you'll be harassed less. If you're going to take more than 2 auto attacks or like a spell and an auto attack for a CS, it's not too worth it unless it's the beginning of the game and you have a lot of pots. That's fine. At the beginning, you should try to look to get as many CS as you can. And if you have a lot of pots, it shouldn't really matter too much. But I'm saying like after your first back, things like that is not too worth. The goal generally is to stay in as long as you can, because if you're harassed out and you have to go back early and you can't buy the item that you want, you're going to be put severely behind. And in top lane, that's a really bad situation for you. Harassing lane opponents under tower. Now again, going to that other slide, it's dangerous to be more than halfway from the safe zone, like in your lane. But if you see the jungler bot or something and it's pretty safe, then harassing your lane opponents under tower is a pretty big thing that I think you should be thinking about doing, because most people, I don't know, sometimes they just focus on the tower, but you have a chance of putting more damage onto them, and then when the wave pushes back towards you, you can maybe go all in them. It really depends on the situation. But yeah, so if they try to CS under tower, you should look to harass them. Stay behind your ranged minions, and just be careful to not overextend. Don't blow any of your escapes on them for whatever reason, and just ward. Creep wave control. I think this is the last one. Yeah. Oh Jesus. Okay. I didn't link it. Wait a minute, Ollie, you're here. You want to explain creep wave control?
Nah, it's okay.
You were so confident. Okay, so unfortunately I didn't link it, and I don't know how to find it. So I think we'll just skip that one. But basically, there are three options: when to push, when to freeze, and when you want to reset the wave. So cases in where you want to push the wave is before you want to go back to base, because then if you push their waves into the tower and then tower kills them before they get there, then they're essentially missing out on XP and the gold that they gain. Push if you want to reset the wave. So say if you're up against a Nasus and he tries to freeze the wave so that he can get all his stacks up and become a god late game, then what you should do is try as hard as you can to push the minions all the way into the tower. So you will likely need the jungler's help to push him into the tower, because in that situation he'll probably just soak in all your harass, and then he'll just heal it up back up from like landing all his Qs on all the minions. And also, when the enemy laner dies or leaves lane, then you should push to again deny them CS and XP. There's a couple times when you want to freeze. That's when if you're winning and you want to deny the lane opponent CS and experience. Typically, you don't really freeze when you're behind. Typically, you freeze only when you're able to kill the enemy opponent. And then in the case when you're in an unfavorable matchup. Ollie, you want to explain this one? Yeah? Our guest lecturer, Ollie.
Okay, well, when you want to push the wave, that's all. Start from the beginning. Before back and denying your opponent's CS. When you push the wave into the tower and you have, like, say you have 6 minions against 6 minions, your lane opponent leaves the lane and you push 6 minions into a tower, not only deny them like the first 4 minions CS or however many it takes them to get back, if they get to lane they have 2 CS there, and when their wave hits the range minions at the turret, the wave will actually build up, and when you get them back to lane, you don't have to use your TP, you can just walk back to lane and you'll have like 12, 13, 14 minions there for you to clean up. And also if you're winning and you do that, you can freeze the waves and deny them experience. So that's one way, that's like what you should do to push your wave to deny your opponent's CS and experience. Pushing into the tower resets your wave, like I said. The rain minions come, they make the enemy minions group up, and you can bounce your wave off the turret to come back towards your turret. Okay, so harassing on a tower is like a really hard thing to do, especially if you're at low elo, because junglers just run around and kill you because you don't really ward. So make sure if you push your way in, make sure you ward your bush. You're playing someone like, let's say Lissandra versus Aurelia, right? Aurelia has a lot of kill pressure on Lissandra, but if you push your wave into her turret as Lissandra, he has to make a decision now. It's like, do I trade harass and when he claws out for these 3 minions, or do I take the 3 minions? And 99% of Aurelia's, or any player, will take the 3 minions because they want to scale into late game. So it gives you a really good opportunity to sit there and like harass them with no trade potential back. Like, there's very little trade potential back for them. When the enemy laner leaves or dies. So if your jungler comes up and you get a kill, you push the wave into the tower, they deny them CS experience, and again the wave comes back to you and you have more minions when you come back. Okay, when to freeze. When you're winning. So what this means is, like, if you're winning a matchup, so for example, let's say we're playing Riven versus Fiora. Okay, you're both melee champions in top lane, and you're Riven, you get first blood on her level 2 because you do your level 2 strat. Now, she has no TP because she's got Ignite as well. She comes back to lane, she has an extra Doran's Blade, you come back to lane, you have Doran's Blade Longsword, for example. The minions are pushing to you because you've just pushed into your tower, you're bouncing back. And this is an opportunity where you say, I have experience on this guy, I have more minions, so I'm going to hit level 3 before him. I can sit there and have like an extra range minion, so the wave never like leaves where you want it to leave, so say like 3/4 way up your lane. This means you can never get ganked because you're right next to your tower, you can just walk back to it. And also, if she comes up to last hit a minion, you can just all in her, and she probably has no flash from level 1, or you can blow her flash and just keep your advantage snowballing. So that's a really good time to freeze your lane when you're winning. Now when you're in an unfavorable matchup, this is where it becomes really hard, and this is how, I know a lot of you players say like, oh, I play this matchup matchup and there's nothing I can do. There's absolutely nothing I can do. This champion just beats my champion. And this is something that you do when you think you have nothing to do. It's like, if you play a really unfavorable matchup, you're a really good player, what you do is you can bait them into taking the CS to push the wave to your turret, and then you just stand there and it's like, so if your turret's here, and then say you're playing blue side, your turret's here, the river's here, and you get the wave to here and you have more minions, you can just stand there, if they go onto you, you're right at your turret, you can just walk back, last hit the minions, they're going to try and get pushed into your turret, but then they have jungle pressure coming up as well. So that's a one way to have an unfavorable matchup that you're playing in and come out of it with a lot of CS and not die, obviously. When to reset, if the lane opponent is trying to freeze, so this is, if they're winning and they're freezing the lane, that's when you have to say, hey jungler, you need to come up here and push this wave in, or I'm going to be down 50 CS and you're going to cry and team fights like do nothing. So, yeah, that's wave control.
Yeah. Ollie, could you go down to the bus stop and pick up the drinks? Yeah, he's there. Please. Please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
What's freezing and reset? Like, I sort of got the gist of it, but what does it mean? Like when
Freezing
you
is
reset,
when
is that
you,
when the waves come together or some shit?
Okay, so when you have 6 minions and the enemy has 6 minions and they attack each other, right, they like clear each other out, so it's like they like negate each other. So what freezing is you keep it so the enemy team has more minions, so they kill your minions faster, right, and you can keep it off your tower, so you can like, if you're near your turret, right, and then they have extra 2 range minions, they're going to kill your minions and they're going to have extra 4 range minions, so you just stand there and let the 4 range minions attack you, and when your wave comes up, then they have 10 minions and you have 4 minions, which means your minions can never push out away from your turret.
Okay.
So that's what freezing is. It's like keeping it in the one spot. So do you ever watch do you watch LCS or anything like that? Okay. That's not a good example. But yeah, so that's the one way.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
know
like,
what you mean. Like, you're holding it at a certain position where you can take control of this.
yeah. One thing you need to be careful with when you freeze in a wave is don't let yourself get too many minions, because if you have too many minions and they attack you and you attack them back, you'll just die. Like the minions will just kill you. So just make it so you have like 2 or 3 range minions extra on them every time.
If you have 3 full health range minions, it's a perfect freeze.
Yeah.
So as long as you have 3 full health or 4 not full health, you can hold the freeze indefinitely. Any more than that, you're taking extra damage.
Yeah.
Any less, and it'll slow push towards you as you last hit.
If it's slow pushes towards you, it's fine because you have an experienced lead and then they have to risk fighting you and your minions if they want to kill you, and then they can't do that. They can't fight you and your minions. You'll just kill them. Okay, so resetting is when they're like, when you have a lot of minions, it's pushing towards their turret, right? You don't want to go past their river because you can get ganked. So resetting is pushing into their turret, and then it'll build up a minion wave at their turret, and it'll push back to you. So that's like resetting the wave back into the middle. And if you want to fully reset the wave so that it goes just in the middle, you just, when their minions build up, just clear them all, and then 6 minions and 6 minions will come back in the middle, and you'll just have reset the wave back to like level 1.
Yep.
No worries.
Okay. So mid and late game. This is what we're going to cover. How to use your top lane, how to use your teleport effectively, how to itemize against certain champions, team fighting, when to split push, and the solo queue mindset. Actually, the solo queue mindset was pushed to the front, so there you go. All right. So top tip, teleporting to a minion award will make it invulnerable to damage. I think he didn't cover this. But towers, however, they can be damaged and taken down before you get to finish your teleport channel, effectively cancelling it. So, to summarize, don't teleport when your enemy laner has vision of you, especially if they have a stun, because then they can just stop you, and they can bait your bot lane or wherever you're teleporting to into bad fights. Don't back to your lane past the 8-minute mark, because the 8-minute mark is sort of when, unless your bot lane is behind, it's sort of when your bot lane hits level 6, and that's when junglers and there's going to be engagers in the bot lane most likely. So you want to save your TP until then so that you can go down and help them out, and teleport when there's an opportunity in bot lane, and ideally you should be teleporting either behind or to flank the enemy team, to sort of put them in a lose-lose situation. So if they run towards you, you probably have CC, so you stop them. If they run towards your team, they're going to get crushed. So you gotta put them in that really awkward situation when you want to teleport down. So a couple notes, teleporting to tower will reduce the CD to the cooldown to 240 seconds. Normally it's 300, and if you cancel it, it'll put it down to 200. So it's worth canceling your teleport if you're teleporting into a really, really bad spot. Just keep in mind you can cancel. Just tap the teleport button again. Seen people just go in, oh, I can't stop, and then they just TP into 5 people and die. Another tip is to time your opponent's TP by adding just 5 minutes, or just 300 seconds. There's actually an option in League to convert your seconds into minutes if it goes past 60. So I think that's a really good option, because it's like, when's your TP up? Oh, 234 seconds. Oh, okay. And then they have to do some mental math. And also, this tip works with Flash also, because it's also 300 seconds, or 5 minutes. Itemization. Now, I'm not going to cover everything. You can pretty much just like mobile fire or pro builds, whatever you're building into for what champ. But generally, if you're in an unfavorable matchup and you're against a full AD champion such as like Riven or Fiora, this build will help you out. It's really situational, but keep in mind that you can do this. So you go for a cloth start because they're full AD, they'll do less damage to you, and then that's 5 pots and a trinket ward. So with building either armor first or ninja tabby, you can do any, but I think, wait. If you don't have enough money, buy chain vest first. But if you do have the money, buy ninja tabbies. Because ninja tabby is really good against AD champions because it blocks 10% of their auto, which is pretty huge. And it also gives you armor as well. But I'm just saying that if you don't have enough money, buy a chain vest and then rush for that Sunfire. Once you have Sunfire, you'll be able to 1v1 them, provided that you're not behind or if you're just even. You will be able to 1v1 that Fiora or that Riven. And then a little bit later, they'll be looking to buy probably a Last Whisper if they're not dumb. So by the time they get Last Whisper, you should be able to get Ninja Tabby, which will help you again to 1v1 them. So if you're up against someone like Riven or Fiora, this build is really good. Say if you're a Jax, because Jax's base damage is pretty high, or it's pretty decent, even if he builds full tank. So it's not a bad build. You're not sacrificing too much. You get to push the wave. Of course, you'll be a little less on the damage side, but you will survive and kill them, which is more worth than you being beat out in a straight out 1v1. After this build, you should just continue normally or just build full tank, depending on what your champion is. It's pretty situational. So against AP, so I'm talking about like Ryze or Kennen or, I don't know, Lissandra. Pretty hard matchups. So in that case, you should go for a flask start. Unless you're like a manaless champion, then you should go, if you're a manaless champion, I don't know, Riven, you probably would still go for longsword and FourPaws. But if you do have mana, then go for the flask start. And then you would either look to get either Banshee's Veil or Hex Drinker. Hex Drinker only if you're an AD champion. And then if you're a tanky champion, go for Banshees. But for Hex Drinker, you should upgrade later on in the game. It's not that worth upgrading it straight away because it doesn't give you too much. And it delays you building some tankiness item. So you can get both or you can get one or the other. It's pretty flexible. And you'd go for that Banshee's Veil because it's more worth to block a spell than... It really depends on your champion, really. But more often than not, Banshee's Veil is more useful, and then you get that Merc Treads. And of course, upgrade your trinkets later on in the game. So, team fighting. Now, what I like to do before a game starts in the loading screen, provided that, your computer's not super computer that can load up in like 2 seconds, but usually it's around like 30 or to 1 minute that you're in the loading time. So I like to use that time to either analyze my matchup, see what I'm going up against, what jungler might be coming up to gank me so that I can plan out my escape routes or what I'm going to do. And then I should also be trying to look for and identify what my role is in team fights. So say I'm a Maokai, sure I can engage, but if they have someone like a Vi, I can instead peel, provided that my ADC is not behind. So setting up your roles before the game start is really good to give you direction in the team fights so that you're just not doing whatever you feel like, and it's going to be less optimal if you do pick the wrong decision. And then generally after team fights you'll be looking to gain objectives. Now, because he was Mega now already, and I think he already used his jump, Jarvan locked him in, and so he had to flash out, but he did land a really good ult, except his teammates aren't there, and this is why I put this quote down. This is by Kobe. A lot of times in solo queue, where's my team? What's happening? If they were there, then, we would have destroyed them. But it doesn't matter why your teammates aren't there. It just matters that they aren't. So it's not really useful to complain and stuff. You just got to move on and then see what else you can do in the game. To split push or not to split, oh god. So this also, I didn't put the link in. So I guess it's pretty simple really. Just when you're split pushing, make sure that you're stronger than whoever you're going to be put up against that can try to stop you. So if you're ahead, split pushing is a really good option. And make sure that your team is on the same page before you do it, because they engage 4v5, they die, and they're like, why are you split pushing, dude? I always hear that all the time. But there's two types of split pushes. There's the 1-3-1 strategy. So these refer to your lanes. So like 3 people in the middle, 2 people on the sides that are, but 1 on each lane pushing. So it's like 1 and then 3 in the middle. In this strategy, you should never team fight. You should only be taking objectives. And what that does is that it forces the other enemy team to choose which tower to go to. And because it's solo queue, it's really hard for them to try to coordinate properly. So you'll end up taking, if you pull it off right, and provided you don't get picked off on the sides, objectives. Because if they send 2 people to either top, then mid lane or like bottom lane, the tower, you can take either one of those towers, and vice versa for anything else. So that's more effective for taking the outer turrets, because the way the map is set out, the outer turrets are spaced further apart, so it's harder for them to react in the 1-3-1 split push strategy. So the other one is the 1-4, which is basically one person, famous split pusher would be Zed, and then everyone else just group up on the opposite. So Zed would be split pushing top, for example, and then everyone else would be pushing bot. Now in this strategy, the main thing that you want to do is create pressure. Like as a split pusher, you want to create pressure. And in this strategy, it's a little bit more safer in that your team can actually team fight if you have TP or if you can like quickly rotate down. So in this strategy, you have to be stronger than the person who's attacking or who's trying to defend a turret. So if you're Zed and you can kill that person that they send up, that's great, because they have to send 2 people to deal with you now. That puts your team in an advantage. And then you can and then once they're trying to clear the wave, you rotate to where your team is, and then they either push it down or you engage on someone on the enemy team to gain more objectives. And this strategy is more effective in taking like inner and especially inhibitor turrets, where it's a little bit hard to do the 1-3-1 because they're all in their base. It's a shorter space where they can just rotate. So 1-4 is more effective for taking inhibitor turrets. All right, cool. So these are some YouTube channels. JBay99, he's really good for like developing good mindset on solo queue, stuff like that. FourPaws, he has really good strategy guides to top lane. Jeremy Gaming, he's good in-depth like general strategy stuff. Kainy, he's good for tips and commentary. I'll put all these up, or you can take pictures of it if you want to. All good? All right. And then these are some top lane streamers that I Really highly recommend. Wings of Death is on my top list. He explains everything he does, and he's also entertaining. ZionSpartan also does that. Darius, he's Darius, so he's quiet sometimes, but when he does feel like talking and stuff, there's a lot of stuff that you can learn from him. And there's also Balls. I haven't watched that stream, but apparently it's good. So these are sort of like the streamers that you can watch. And yeah, thank you for coming out, guys. Social's going to be starting at 6, and then we'll just go from there. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody.